Well, first of all, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk a little bit about brand today and the role that video everywhere really plays in terms of brand building and giving brands an opportunity to really stand out from the fray. I thought it was great the way that Jordan had mentioned looking for a new language and looking for a language that marketers are familiar with, namely the GRP. I think the other language that marketers are very familiar with is the language of brand. And what I'll be talking about today is how to use that language to be able to really have them embrace video as part of their integrated media plans and less as a standalone. Thank you. So with advertiser and consumer enthusiasm for video really showing no signs of abating and the blurring between online and offline increasingly growing, we find that there is definitely a need for marketers to embrace these new video ad formats. Now, as I mentioned before, we're finding that brands that really can set clear objectives for the use of video, and more importantly, use it as part of an integrated campaign, are really the ones that are in a position to succeed. Here's a great example from an analysis that we did out of Cross Media, where we had a client who was using both TV and YouTube. Now, one of the questions that we get asked very, very frequently is video simply, and in particular online video, simply a cheaper alternative to TV? And the short answer right now is simply no. Now, the reason why the answer right now is simply no is because of reach. The average reach of online video campaigns, depending upon the source that you look at, is roughly 13%. That compares to the average reach of TV campaigns of roughly 75%. Having said that, what video does incredibly well, and video across different platforms, is it reaches those elusive light TV viewers. And it not only reaches them, but it delivers frequency against this group that could not be achieved through TV without very heavy expenditures. So looking at the example here, what you can find is that overall YouTube delivered 35% of the audience. But what is so interesting about this is that important that the TV to reach the same audience cost roughly 5 times what the YouTube purchasing did. So what you find is that you are getting a much more efficient buy with online video, and in particular, you are reaching, again, that elusive TV audience that will be very difficult and very expensive for marketers to find. Another reason why marketers are thinking about the use of video is simply the power of emotion. Video delivers an emotional narrative that cannot be found elsewhere or is very challenging in other media. Well, why is emotion important? And with this, I have to look at overall brands that grow. One of the things that we find is that brands that grow are ones that are seen by consumers as meaningfully different. How does a brand attach meaning? One of the ways it can attach meaning is not just in delivering against functional needs, but connecting with an individual emotionally. So being able to tap into an advertising platform that helps to build emotion is extremely important. We also know the way in which the human brain works is the human brain tends to pay attention to the things that connect with them emotionally. Think about the events in your own life. Think about the ones that you remember most vividly. They are the ones that are typically emotionally charged. So not only does leveraging emotion from video help to build brands, it also helps to garner attention. So my focus today is, in essence, going to be on online video specifically, simply because it is the most prominent and the fastest growing. And the data I'm going to be looking at comes from a market norms database. This market norms database includes over 7,500 online campaigns and is focused on the brand impact of digital advertising. Because of the size of the database, we're able to look at different industries, different sites, different formats to be able to understand how they each contribute to a brand's success. The measures I'm going to be showing you are very much sort of traditional brand metrics that you would see in any funnel. They are things like brand awareness. Simply, do people have some degree of familiarity with that brand name? Second, message association. What is it that they attach to the brand? What is the positioning they see? What is the image that it has? The third is favorability. Does it get into the consideration set, and does it have a favorable place within people's minds? And finally, purchase intent. Does it actually make an individual want to buy? The way in which I'm representing the data here is on the vertical axis, you will actually see a delta. This is the percent of incremental people that have been impacted. Good way to think about it is simply comparing the people who have seen an ad unit versus the people that have not, and looking at the difference. In the light green box, you're looking at people who were exposed to any online video at a frequency of 1. In the dark green, we have rich media, excluding video, again at a frequency of 1. And in the blue bar, you see flash. What is very easy to notice here is that video outperforms the industry standard consistently. And not only does it outperform the industry standard, but it does so at a low frequency. We also looked at the performance of video by video that was paired with a companion banner versus video that do not feature a companion banner. And certainly this speaks to the power of pairing up the advertising units for video with something more traditional in the display space. Consistently across the board, as you look at sort of those higher funnel metrics, you do find that featuring a companion banner actually gives you a greater opportunity to be noticed and to say something about the brand. So let's look at in-stream versus in-banner. The light green box is in-stream, the dark green box is in-banner. In-stream has the benefit of a highly visible placement. In other words, here we're talking typically about pre-roll and mid-roll, and you can see its impact on the actual awareness and message association with the brand. In-banner is a much more challenging advertising unit, and the challenge there is it needs to sort of fight with content in order to grab attention, but it also needs to do so in a way that isn't seen as interfering with the visitor's browsing experience. So there's an interesting challenge in the sense of I want to get noticed, but also I don't want to be done so in a negative way that may actually impact my brand. These banner videos could be autoplay, they could be click to play. Certainly the former garners more attention, but one of the things that we found that can be more useful is to use almost teaser videos as a means to garner that attention without perhaps taking away too much from the user experience. Here we're also looking at the role of interactivity, and thank you to our partner Yumi for helping us pull together this analysis featuring interactivity. What we find here is that interactivity certainly does help in the ability to get noticed. It doesn't necessarily impact a brand's favorability or the purchase intent, but as it gets noticed, because it features higher levels of interactivity, what we do find is that it is more likely to result in a visit to the site or to subsequent content that at that juncture can enhance the brand experience and cause someone to be interested in purchasing. Here we're looking at ad length. This is interesting for advertisers because they do tend to think in terms of the traditional 30-second unit. So we want to be able to look at for them the difference between shorter ad units, say between 11 and 20 seconds, and longer ad units that can be seen in the dark green between 21 and 30 seconds. You'll notice here that the key difference is on message association. Longer form videos are more likely to say something about the brand. Now you have to offset this in terms of the fact that these longer ad units cost more and their completion rate is lower. The other thing I would caution advertisers to think about is while the longer format is actually able to deliver, in an environment where the viewer is in complete and total control, we have to bear in mind that consumers are not necessarily paying or giving their undivided attention to the messaging you're delivering. One of the things that we found in TV is that take away those messages in a TV environment, but where people are more in control, it will become all the more challenging. Now, another area that we've been asked to look at by advertisers is the idea of original content versus repurposed content. Reason why they're looking at this is they do see this very much, they do see online video very much as an extension of TV. But whether one pursues the route of original content or simply repurposed content comes back to the goals of the campaign. And what I'll show you in a few minutes is a simple decision tree that we've put together to help advertisers think about whether or not they should be pursuing more of an original content route or going the route of repurposing. In the light green bar here, we have web original content. In the dark green bar, we have repurposed. We find that web original content does very well in terms of those lower funnel metrics of favorability and purchase intent. And it does that because it can very much be customized to some of the custom content that it is appearing in. And it can be aligned with specific placements or specific targeting initiatives. So the web original content really benefits from its customization and its ability to be seen as relevant. On the other hand, the repurposed content benefits in terms of its ability to break through. A lot of that has to do with likely the familiarity with the offline components of the campaign and simply overall familiarity with elements of the campaign that have aired on TV. So you can start to see here the need for a better understanding of the campaign goals to determine whether or not I want to pursue the route of repurposed versus web original content. Now here we're actually, apologies for the subtitle there, here we're actually looking very similarly at repurposed content in light green, and we are seeing web original content in dark green. We all know that context is incredibly important to a successful online video plan. What you see here is the fact that repurposed content is designed for that target in mind, that the brand impact is typically stronger amongst that desired target. Frequency. Again, these are repurposed ads. Where exposure frequency can be beneficial is in terms of creating awareness. What we find is that it does not necessarily have an impact on purchase intent. One thing I'd point out on purchase intent is it tends to be heavily influenced by new news, though. And new news is only new once. So if this is part of an extended campaign, if this is being used as an overlay to TV advertising, typically that individual will have received the message, they will have interpreted it as new news, and they will be persuaded, regardless of the frequency. What I would caution you is this would suggest that repurposed online video consistently be used at a higher frequency. But the issue there becomes, think about the number of times simply you've been watching TV and you keep on seeing the same ad over and over and over again. And now you're doing that in the online format and you're showing that same ad over and over and over again. While it shows a positive impact in terms of breakthrough, we need to think about the irritation factor and the fact that with too high frequency, we can actively turn off the viewer and negatively impact brands. Here's the decision tree to which I referred earlier. The starting point of our decision tree is simply, is there time or budget to... I think this is important all the more in the day and age when you have publishers such as YouTube that are giving their viewers more control. And if you're giving viewers more control, you truly want to engage them with something that will connect. Think about what you expect to accomplish with online video and why someone would actually view your video content. Don't just think about reach, think about what you're trying to accomplish. We've seen already in the data that interactivity, length, the types of sites, the targeting, these are all variables that have to come into play, and we have to think about the role that they each play in achieving the desired branding goals. Web original content is incredibly powerful, and it can be more efficient in terms of creating perceptions and influencing people in terms of their purchase decisions. That is primarily because it is seen as different, and we pay attention to things that are different. And finally, we need to stop thinking about video as separate from the broader campaign strategy. We need to be thinking about video very much up front. And while my focus today has been on online video, let's not forget the power of mobile video. In terms of its share of video distribution, it is the most rapidly growing. And I do agree with the earlier speaker that it has the ability to become or move from Wigan Athletic, I believe it was, to Manchester United. So thank you so much for the time.
Anna's going to hang on and be a part of our opening panel so that if you have any questions for her, we can fold those into the Q&A portion for the panel.